Why, hello there. Welcome back to another scintillating episode of workshopping a potential alternative thief. You can see here I've got Ouija open with our board from part one. Hey, Krister. And I forgot to ask, folks can see me and hear me. I just had this in my hand. I got this in the mail the other day. The, what is it? Igsberg. Hexed companion setting, part of the Castle Zagig series. That I guess who is it that's re-releasing these Troll Lord games? I guess it's finally got the rights to re-release them. I have the PDF also. I'll probably be going through that. Curious if any other folks picked it up, if they've looked through it. I don't have any original relationship with it. I didn't have them originally, so I'm kind of curious to see it. I did flip through it briefly just out of curiosity, but I will save a reading for the channel. There's something else that occurred to me. So I know we were looking at these different potential archetypes just to have, because one thing I think we were coming up with in part one, there was a lot of interesting ideas, ways we could really expand things, right? But I feel like if you're going to expand things, I think you gotta pull back some things. I don't think that the thief's an interesting class in that, unlike some of the other classes, maybe all the other classes. Well, no, that's not fair. So the fighter, hyper specialized in the art of war, or not even. I don't know if hyper specialized even makes sense, right? The only it advantageous on the battlefield during times of conflict. Outside of that, has to basically just play with their wits, the tools that they have right off the character sheet. Don't get any special tools. Don't get any special powers. Don't get anything. Of course, wizards and clerics certainly get a lot more tools as they progress that are not just one situation specific multiples. Clerics also get, turn undead, which is very good, but specialized. If there's undead, it's powerful. If there's no undead, it's worthless, basically. Thieves are interesting because maybe unlike these other classes, a lot of their abilities are useful all the time. Whereas you could say with a fighter, hey, yeah, I'm great if I'm fighting stuff. I got my magic armor, got my magic shield, got my magic weapon, whatever other magic thing, got some magic rings, maybe, whatever else I got going on. And maybe those abilities, look, maybe some of these items have some abilities outside of combat, but essentially outside of combat, it's just me and my wits. I got nothing. A cleric and a magic user, as they progress, will have the ability to get more things that are situationally useful outside of combat, but no one else but the thief gets stuff where I can't think of many sessions in which some of the stuff couldn't be useful, whether it's a social setting, whether it's an exploration setting, whether it's a dungeon delving setting. I just think that thieves get these skills that are always going to be handy. And as soon as you have the thief, if you're in the dungeon, you're like, okay, thief, go in the front. Do your thiefly work and guide us through these dark halls. And what that means is that the thief is going to be at the center of the action. Sure, they're in a higher danger zone, but they're also going to be the person who's going to almost be in that caller kind of spot. If not literally, they might not literally be the caller, but they're going to be making a lot of decisions. If you've got the thief that's out 60, 80, whatever feet, the decisions they make impact everybody else, even if the rest of the party wouldn't care. But they really kind of get to be the focus. So as we look and say, oh, well, maybe they can do this, maybe they can do that. I also want to be cognizant of, well, maybe they don't need to do everything. And maybe, in fact, by narrowing the scope a little bit, we could actually, like in these archetypes, you can actually have 3 or 4 different classes that encompass some combination of all these different skills. And then in doing that, by narrowing the focus a little bit, maybe we can look at, well, so they get to read spell scrolls high level. Maybe we could bring that in. Maybe we could put some progression in there, give it to them earlier because they're not getting 800 other things. But it's interesting because when I was looking back over the notes, it's like, wow, the thieves get a lot. I mean, they get a lot of stuff. Some of it doesn't come early, some of it comes late, but they get a lot. And they get a lot of different things in a way that no other class gets. I suppose you can if you look at each spell as a different thing, so you can say, okay, well, magic users get a lot of spells, but thieves get a lot. And then I had another thing, which I'm going to throw out there, call it the nuclear option. And here's my. I'm just going to lay out the nuclear option. I could probably do a whole stream, and maybe I will on this. But here's the nuclear option. And the part one of the nuclear option actually is not going to seem peculiar because it's basically what I think a lot of folks do or just don't do, which is blow up the thief. There is no thief, right? To go back to 1970, 1973, 1974, there is no thief. Instead, basically package out or even just individually have some of these thief abilities be things that characters can get as some kind of starting package. So let me explain for a moment. Remember here we had stealth, surprise, right? The combination of, in a sense, by stealth or hide in shadows, move with great stealth. Essentially, is your surprise, or how well you surprise people, how easily, or how rarely you're surprised, how easily you surprise people, and maybe with some of it in situations where a normal party person could not surprise someone. Maybe you give the thief a roll, something like that, right? Okay, great. What if you just took that, instead of having that be a thief ability, you just have it be something that someone could get just to jump? Anybody, magic user, cleric, fighter, something that says stealthy. And then you just give this package this little thing up. You can move silently. And of course, you could still put your, not in heavy armor or whatever. You can put whatever limitations you want. You can move silently. You can hide in shadows. And how we're defining that is you get these extra surprise bits. You get, +1 to surprise, -1 to be surprised, however we want to do it and do that. And you could break that out with basically all the different things. Hey, listen for noise. Yeah, we want everybody to do that. Thieves are a little bit better in our original kind of breakout, but we could just say, hey, you have great ears, sharp hearing. When you are listening, instead of the usual 1 in 6, you're 2 in 6. Or if you're already 2 in 6, you'd be 3 in 6, something like that. And then you just break out all of those into little packages. And if some seem particularly weak, you could probably put 2 of them, but then you could just give everybody a chance of having a starting package of, hey, you're just better. All these things anybody can do, right? Anybody can do them, but you're a little bit better. And maybe even with climbing. Instead of having it be equipment based, you can say, hey, whatever the reason why I went with equipment, if you remember from our earlier talk, was that I wanted to avoid creating a mechanic. There is no climb mechanic and say OD&D or BX. You're supposed to just kind of come up with whatever you think makes sense and roll it. So rather than coming up with a climb mechanic to then give the thief a bonus on the climbing mechanic, I said, hey, it's equipment based, which it could still be equipment based. That could be another package. And as Jack Hole says, you could have scout, assassin, academic, etc. So packages, and that essentially anybody can have those at character generation. You want to be a fighter, you could be a fighter with an academic background. You could be a fighter with an assassin background. You could be a wizard with a scout background. Whatever it is, you could do all those. And then I thought, could we take it a step further? Let's really blow it up. So that's kind of like maybe the tactical nuke. But I'm saying let's go big. Let us go big. And like I said, I will probably break this out into its own stream because I think it ends up being a bigger thing than I necessarily want to get into. I don't know the space, but I'll listen to you guys, right? So I went, okay, well, that's a nice tactical nuke option, but I want to go big. And the bigger one is to do that with all the demi-human abilities as well. Take all that stuff, and it's not all that much. Take the stuff the elf gets, take the stuff the dwarf gets, wipe all those advantages of all the different demi-humans away, and instead replace them with similarly with packages. Hey, Hunter, what's up? So that you could have this packages of not only the kind of the thief type skills, you could also have packages with stuff like and I probably want to break up some of them. So say one package might be you're immune to charm and charm effects. One package might be I don't know, there's a secret door sense or something like that. Or one package might be you have better saves, like dwarf has better saves. You might have 3 saves. The slanting passageways, could be part of one. As Jackal says, a dwarf package could be a minor background. Yeah, you could probably think about it. I mean, some of them are probably not going to fit, like the secret door awareness. You could probably squeeze it into something so it kind of makes sense from a distance. because it's sort of pseudo magical in the sense that the elf just enters the room and is like, "Ooh, I think there's a secret passage here." I mean, maybe you could say, "Hey, they've got interior design sense, they've got feng shui sense," so that they notice that the layout is off just a little bit. Sure, you can make it for work, right? But I would just okay with being like my thought was to call them something like gifts or talents. You just have a talent, you have a gift for it. It doesn't have to match up. Like I'm okay with it. I like what Jack Cole's been doing was kind of creating. I forget the word they use for sort of in fiction reasons. Well, because you were a miner, so you have these things, or you were an assassin, so you get these things. But I'd also be okay just saying, hey, you just have a talent, you have a gift for it. Call it from the gods. Call it part of your fate. Call it something about you. You just got it, right? Other people don't see this stuff. You see it. I'm okay with that too. So while I think it can be fun to come up with, well, what kind of occupation could someone have had to make them good at scouting secret doors? I don't want to lock into a super mundane explanation because we're playing fantasy games. We're playing games with active gods and powers and other things. So I'm totally okay with saying, hey, I don't know, whoever your personal god is, or just some kind of luck of the draw, or just magic in the veins, you've got a sense of where secret doors are. You don't know how but you know. Or at least you get your spider sense tingles, you get a itch on your nose, whatever it is. And then just have all this stuff out there. Because the reason how I came to this idea, and I know I'm not inventing, it's not like I didn't invent it. I'm not going to take credit for being the first person to establish such a thing. But how it got into my mind was I had been thinking about demi-humans and thinking about, okay, well, they have these special abilities. If I was going to kind of break them out a little bit, how would I do it? And I was thinking about, well, do I add some kind of tax on experience? So if you're looking at, if I want to, let's say I'm playing BX, but I want to split off dwarves from fighters, right? I don't want to, or I want to have dwarf, I want to have the species of dwarf, not as a class, but as kind of a thing, a background, if you will, a heritage, whatever. So I can look at like how much experience does a dwarf get versus how much experience, how much experience a dwarf needs to progress. Subtract pretty much the fighter's thing, what the fighter needs to progress, and you kind of have, since dwarves are basically dwarf fighters, you do that and you'll kind of get an idea. Well, what is the dwarf tax for each level? And you could, I don't know how they came up with their numbers. I would probably just want to sort of standardize in some way, but you could get the right kind of neighborhood. You could do something similar with elves. It might be more complicated because I think you got to look at like what is magic user, what is fighter, kind of figure those out. And I don't even know if that's how they did it because I haven't checked the numbers, right? And then kind of you figure out sort of what's left once you've taken away the classes in there. Well, what do you got left? And that's kind of your elf tax, basically. And then for halflings, I'm not even sure what it would be. Maybe fighter again? I'm not sure. But this is predicated on the idea that you're going with humans basically staying as they are, and then figuring out how to sub out these things. And I was doing this exercise without thinking of, well, just go to AD&D and grab it from there, which you could totally just do. Or look at, the white box, I don't think they do it all because the idea was I'm not a huge fan of, some people just go with it, of the level restriction. So I'm not trying to do the kind of level restriction game. So I was kind of looking at that. But then it kind of occurred to me as I was going through the thief thing, well, why even exclude humans from it? Why not just have everybody? Everybody just gets some kind of talent. And then whichever demi-human you are, maybe the reason why you play a dwarf just comes down to you want to play a dwarf. And in terms of, well, what's so dwarven about that? It's like, well, you have access to dwarf lore and dwarf knowledge and dwarf information that other people don't have. It's not necessarily mechanical. You're not getting a plus or a minus to do anything, but you've got this background. And when you run into dwarves, you can have species bonuses or whatever when you're running into others of your kind, so that you could still feel good when you're a dwarf with a party of non-dwarves and you enter a dwarven city. You still get to, you can still have the kind of stuff to feel like I'm a dwarf and not something else. But you can then be a dwarf with all kinds of different quirks than somebody else's dwarf. Jekyll says you can separate out each ability. If they take it, they pay an XP tax. Yes, that was one of my things. Now that's complicated, a little bit complicated, because you got to come up with what those XP taxes are. But that was one of my ideas. But then I also just thought if you give it to everybody, see, Jack Hole, my idea kind of, I don't want to say progressed. It kind of turned on once I decided, well, why can't everybody have it, humans included? Then you don't need to pay an XP tax. You can just keep the numbers as they are because everybody has something. And you maybe want to tweak them. Maybe some are better than others or some are more valuable than others. I don't know. Stuff is very situationally dependent. Sure, the finding secret doors is handy, but not in all cases. Sure, not being able to get charmed, pretty handy, but there are lots of cases where charm isn't enter into it. You could go down the line and say, well, yeah, sure, the dwarf being able to check slopes and corridors is great, but it's does not a lot of times where it's not going to be super important. Even something like, ooh, they got better saving throws. Well, that's great for a bunch of situations, but there's a lot of stuff that's not saving throw based. So I don't know that I don't know that I would pick, and also of course it's going to be very adventure campaign world whatever table dependent in terms of what is important to this table. What are they going to have a lot of? Maybe that would be good. Maybe that won't be good. I mean, you could also do it with clerics. I mean, you could take turn undead and turn that into a package as well. I mean, ultimately, you could declass everything and turn everything into packages, which games have done. I don't know if I want to go that far because I do kind of like classes. I mean, I don't dislike non-class stuff, and I like in things like GURPS and stuff, just pulling everything, being able to build just total ad hoc stuff. But I also kind of like classes. There's a sort of simplicity there. You have that archetype sort of built in. I think it's easy for people, especially new players, to grok. That kind of blank page thing that can happen when you're trying to put everything. If you say, hey, you're a fighter, it's like, I got it. When I played that game with my daughter and she was just like, oh, I kind of like, what are you? And she's like, I'm I don't know if she's a fighter, but she's like, I'm a warrior thief. It's like, great. That works. We got that. If I had to try to go through and kind of hammer out all these individual abilities with her, I would have probably just had to make a package for her, kind of thing. Jekyll says that the old school thief takes less XP than anyone else despite their abilities. Is that just based on their hit die and restrictions? I'm not sure what the reason is. I'm not sure, but yes, they do level up. They do level up quickly compared to most. Where is my book? Let me see if I have here. Hold on, I've got it next to me. I don't know if the Greyhawk has a full XP table, but I got Greyhawk right here. Let's see, what does it say here for? I got some spells, got some things. Okay, determination of abilities. All right, so I guess I'm gonna have to. All right, so I'm going to have to cross-reference. Where is Men in Magic? 1 second. I wasn't prepped for that. Men in Magic. Here's Men in Magic. So Thief, to get to Master Thief, which is at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so 10 levels. 12,500 just at the end. Let's see if we got 4. Where are the? Hold on a minute. Okay, so thieves compared to fighting men. What's the best? Well, let's go clerics first. Clerics, it's 1,500 to second level. Thieves, it's 1,200. Then up to third level, it's 3,000 for cleric, and it's 2,400 for a thief. To get to a vicar, it's 6,000 for a cleric. To get up to the next level for a thief is only 4,800. Then it goes to 12,000 versus 9,600. But then it kind of jumps. So, well, I still, so yeah, okay, here's where it really goes. So then to get to bishop, which is 1, 2, 3, 6th level for a cleric, it's 25,000. For a sharper, it's 20,000. So that jumps up. Now, after bishop to llama, it's 50,000. The thief, then it takes 60,000. And then to get to the actual name level thief, it's 90,000. Now, clerics, and they have no more class. They have no more levels until, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They only have 8 levels here. So the highest level for the cleric is attained at 100,000 points, the highest level. So for thief, it's 90,000. Then to master thief, it's 125,000. So it's true that the thief starts off with smaller numbers for advancement, but then it kind of jumps up pretty strongly. And then now for fighting men, ye old fighters, 1,200 versus 2,000, 2,400. Then thief. I'm doing thief versus fighter basically. 1,200 to 2,000, 2,400 to 4,000, 4,800 to 8,000, 9,600 to 16,000, 20,000 to 32,000, 40,000 to 64,000, 120,000 to 60,000 to 120,000, 900,000 to 240,000. They only have, looks like they only have 8 there too. I think 1, 2, 3. Yeah, they have 9 levels. Is that true? And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, they have 9 levels of fighting man, and then wizards have 11th level. So it's not a straight. It's not straight. So it definitely, at least up until the mid to high levels, thieves are the fastest. And after that, it gets to be more interesting. I would bet that, when do they pick up their, hold on a minute, let me see. When do they get their ability to read spell scrolls? I'm guessing that might be where it starts to slow down. 3rd level, they're able to read most languages. 10th level, magical writings. Okay, that's when they can use. So at 10th levels where they can master thief. Is that right? Master thief, they get to read scroll levels. I think in terms of BX and other ones, I'm not sure what the reason is for the very quick advancement. I don't know if there's a reason given, but they do advance fairly quickly. Why did that pop up? Get out of there. Okay. So at some point, I might come back to my nuclear option of making packages for everything, but I do want to keep some classes. So maybe the thief class will end up going away in some way. What I'll do is we'll make a thief class, but then I'm also thinking, well, if we do this kind of package thing, make a lot of things go away. And I was thinking that this other thing with kind of making all these packages, because the other thing I was thinking about is I wouldn't set this as like a requirement, but maybe as kind of a house rule, side rule, little tip would be to only allow one of each in a given party. That way you don't have people doubling up or tripling up on things. That, you have someone, you maybe have one person in the party who's immune to charm, but not everyone loads up on it. I think it's just kind of fun because I like it as that kind of, in a sense that, which game was it that had the one unique thing? Was that, I can't remember, was it Axe that had one unique thing, which I just thought was a kind of a cool concept of everybody having, and I thought it was a little bit, I don't know, because I think in whatever that system that's in, it's like in the whole world, there's like this one unique thing that I'm like, well, that kind of feels like a little bit far, but I like the idea of in a particular group, everyone's got kind of their own thing. And that way, when you throw things at them at a dungeon match, so let's say they run into a succubus. Yeah, there's that one character's like, it doesn't work on me, but everyone else is still happening. So they get to kind of have a special moment where it's not everybody loads up on the thing. And it's like, haha, you can't get any of us kind of thing. It's like, well, this person's special. These other people, they'll have their own special potential moments, but just not in that situation. Maybe you have the character who can do something else, does the character that does something else, and the character in another situation who has, I don't know, this kind of MacGyverish small trappery type skill gets to do some MacGyver bit later on. So everyone kind of gets having their own kind of one talent or gift allows them to sort of excel in some situation where everyone else may struggle, which I think is fun. And now everybody gets it. And now it's not just, well, it's only for the demi-humans or only for, no, everybody can have it. This is just watered down apple cider for the working man. So that was my idea. I will probably have to work it out in another setting, or another stream rather. Okay, so where were we on here? So we had taken stealth and surprise, turned that into a modifier. I better make a new, let's make a new thief thing here. Here, maybe? New school thief. I'm not, and the other thing I'm not going to worry about like what hit die they have. As far as I'm sure, they could probably stay the same. If we get to a point where we're subtracting a lot of stuff, maybe look at it and change the hit die. I could definitely see if we were creating different archetypes. Like the burglar, I wouldn't give them a lower hit die. I would give them maybe a low hit die. Maybe the ninja, I'd bump it up because they're kind of more fighty. Spies probably keep it the same sort of thing, but I'm not going to worry about that. That's not my main concern right now. So let's just start adding in. So I'm just going to make some. So they're stealthy. +1 to surprise attempts. Let's see. +1 to surprise attempts. -1. -1 to be surprised. I was going to say may surprise in other circumstances, but I'm not going to write that up right now. So I'm just going to keep it like that. So we'll go with that for right now. I'll fold that up. We got stealthy. They got, say, sharp. What's the word? Like sharp hearing? Or, yeah, sharp hearing, sure. +1. Ooh, not _1. +1 to listening for noise. Easy peasy. Okay, so we got stealthy. They have sharp hearing. I might change that just because, you know, theoretically this is all learned stuff as opposed to like, haha, he's got supernaturally sharp hearing. But what are the things we have here? So we thinking about some additional skills: appraisal and ciphering, deciphering. Equipment proficiencies, right? So we've got what does it say in the books when they're talking about equipment? What do they say? Let's see. Where is the fighting? Let's see. Magic users, okay. Oh, they just say the whole plethora. I love the language here. For magic users, in terms of what they can use, the whole plethora of enchanted items lies at the magic user's beck and call. Save the arms and armor of the fighters. Except for elves. Okay, so they don't really say too much. So I'll just go say, we'll call it a proficiency. Why not? Equipment proficiencies. We've got, let's see, so lock picks. Climbing kit. And I would like, and you know, if I knew the names of what that stuff's called, like those claws and things, I would give them, I would name it, but this is okay for now. Okay, so right now we've got, they're stealthy, they have sharp hearing, so they just get a couple of bonuses to that stuff. But remember, this I think kind of brings us back to this concept of everybody can do everything. So they're just better at it slightly by about 16 and change percent. They're better at it. So if everybody has a 16 point whatever percent, thieves get a 33%. 33.33333, whatever. No, is it? Yeah, it is 33.33333, whatever it is. So they get those. Let's see. What else was there? What else do we have? So listen for noise, we got that covered. That becomes an enhanced skill. Moving with stealth, we got that covered in stealthy. Hide in shadows covered by stealthy. Yeah, the sort of striking silently from behind. I mean, that's definitely I kind of like that better than it's. I like it. There's something about that as opposed to backstab, and I think this is where I like some of the language. So when you say strike silently from behind, that opens up. If you think about the kind of options that opens up, gives you a lot, right? Because all it means is you're hitting something from behind. Doesn't say with what, doesn't say particularly how, doesn't say anything about it. So you can then imagine in your mind all kinds of ways in which someone could hit somebody from behind. Oh, Jackhole's got it. Climbing claws. Okay, Takagi Shuko. Oh, cool. I'm gonna leave it as climbing kit, but I'm gonna put that in parentheses because I like it. Takagi Shuko, aka climbing claws. Not AKE, AKA. Thank you. As soon as you say backstab, now you have to kind of explain a little bit if someone's not literally stabbing somebody in the back. Not to say that it's a big deal. Well, backstab's just a kind of name for it. Like you backstab me, and we know in language it means something else. But there's that. It does change things a little bit. I think if you say, well, hey, look, I want to use my bow and arrow to strike silently from behind. I think you don't really have to make any kind of argument. Are you behind them? Yes. Okay, great. You can do something silent like that. But if it's backstab, then there's a little bit of like, well, it says stab. Well, arrows stab. Oh, okay. Well, what if you're throwing a rock? Strike silently from behind. Yeah, that works. Well, it's not stabbing now, and it's not really. Jackal says change backstab to ambush, maybe. Well, yeah, ambush is a pretty good word too. But I kind of like strike silently from behind or silent strike, maybe. But yeah, ambush would totally work. Was just expressing how sometimes I like the different language because backstab is a great word and it's gone into gaming lore and it works. But it in some ways that term just is a little bit more loaded in a way where you have to kind of then try to work out what counts as a backstab or not. Whereas strike silently from behind has less of those problems because it really only requires a couple things. Are you behind them? And I guess, is it silent or can you be silent with it? Which is a little bit less than, backstab, which depending on how you want to read the term might mean that you have to be right up close to somebody. You have to have this knife, It doesn't always come into play. Maybe it doesn't come into play much, but I've definitely been there for those arguments of whether something that counts as a backstab because maybe it's not literally a backstab. And so then you go, well, do they mean it literally? Or do they mean it kind of figuratively? I've been there for those. I did not enjoy them. Okay, so I'm just going to call it silent strike for right now. So when successfully surprising a target, may strike with attacks do increased damage. I'm just going to do something like that. Attacks are more accurate and do increase damage. We have the damage. We have the damage. It's written out. I don't know that I need to really change that, but we got stealthy, sharp hearing, quick proficiency, silent strike, or backstab or ambush. Ambush would be a good one too. Let's see. What else did we have here? Climb, share services. We got that in the equipment. So I think we got all those. Check. And then we have, remove small traps, filch items, and pickpockets, decipher magic treasure maps. Yeah, so here the unique ones is going to be an interesting question, interesting exercise because we've exhausted what we have existing mechanics for. I think, unless I'm missing something. I don't think there is. Where's my wilderness? I don't think we have. I'm looking in Underworld and Underworld. Okay, so I've got Underworld and Wilderness Adventures. I'm gonna go on a limb and say that we don't have a remove trap, an actual remove trap roll called out. Maybe there is one. Maybe there is one. I don't want to prejudice us before we looked. Underworld sections here, the sample level. Okay, map. Let me see. Where's maybe on this map they have something? Where's a trap? Okay, note the pit at the four-way intersection containing secret door on the south surface. Small tunnel will lead discovers the room containing the monster. Okay, that doesn't give us. Oh, wait a minute. No. Falling into the pit. Oh, interesting here. See, well, you know what? This is always the interesting thing about reading these books. And I'm not that you can't find these bits of wisdom in newer books, but they tend to be more organized, and the way they present information is different. So I find you tend not to find these little gems of information or just interesting bits. So I was looking up here. So we have here this map, or I should say this map here, right? And in this map, I thought, because this is what happens when you're reading Holmes to a degree, BX to a degree, certainly the white box, is you may not find an explanation for something in the place where you think it is. So sometimes you may see, like I'm looking here going, okay, I'd like to find out how you roll to disarm a trap. If there is a roll given, if they give you a 1 in 6 or whatever they give you for doing that. I don't think there is one, but I thought, you know what? I always mix things up and forget things, so I'm just going to look it up. And now, because I recognize that sometimes in their infinite wisdom, instead of having something that says traps, removal of, this is how you do it, right? Or you attempt to remove a trap, it's this. No, you might find it in the example of play. You might find it in their sample map. So I thought, well, I know the sample map has at least one trap on it. So let me see what they say on that trap. Thinking maybe then in that spot, they'll have a little note that says, oh yeah, trying to remove this trap or disarm this trap is a 1 in 6 chance, whatever, right? Sounds great. But I found something in case, actually, it's a little bit different. So in this case, what it's telling you is that if you fall into a pit, it only causes damage if a 1 or 2 were rolled. There's a pit trap. I think it's a closed pit. It doesn't actually say it is, but I'm imagining it's a closed pit. I'm pretty sure it was. Again, they don't exactly say, but I think we can intuit because they say it might be one that might have a snapshot door. So it says that. So remember, oftentimes or all the time, really, the rule is if you encounter a trap that you might cross, you'll roll a die and only trigger the trap on a 1 or a 2. So this thing with the pit trap is pretty interesting because it seems to indicate that the 1 or the 2 here is not whether you trigger the trap or not. It's actually whether you get hurt by the trap. That potentially with the pit trap, you're triggering it. No ifs, ands, or buts. You're going down. But if you don't roll a 1 or a 2, it doesn't hurt you. And this is what they say. So I'll just read the whole thing. I'm looking at, if you have it in front of you, we're looking at, I guess it's this 8 section marked 8 here. And it says, note the pit at the 4-way intersection containing a secret door on the south surface. A small tunnel will lead discoverers to the room containing monster I, a true troll or 2 perhaps. The western portion contains the room of some evil man, complete with 2 secret doors for handy escape. There's also a flight of stairs leading down. So that's just the overall room description. Now to the trap. Falling into the pit would typically cause damage if a 1 or 2 were rolled. Otherwise, it would only mean about 1 turn of time to clamber out, providing the character had spikes or associates to pull him out, and providing the pit wasn't one with a snap-shut door and the victim was alone. So it's kind of interesting because here it seems to suggest that if you put a pit trap in your dungeon, it's not a matter of it going off or not. It's a matter of, are they sort of sufficiently surprised and discombobulated to kind of fall on their head or not on their, right? If pit trap opens up, you might fall and just land on your feet 10 feet down and you get to just kind of jump down and maybe you're rattled but not actually hurt, or you slipped whatever and you fall awkwardly and that's where you get hurt. So kind of a neat idea. it's interesting because it makes me want to use pit traps more. Thinking of them in that way, that it's going to go off, but it's either just going to be a pain or it might cause you a little bit of damage. Now you've opened up this other hazard here, which is kind of neat. I think anyway. All right. So, but nothing here on whether you could well, I mean, it's a pit trap, so it's not really going to have a way to. I mean, they could have told you how to disarm it, but they don't. But they don't say that there's any kind of role here. I don't think. All right. Oh, here we go. So, tricks and traps. I don't see any numbers. Traps. Let's see. Intra-level teleportation areas, sinking rooms, illusions, dead ends, one-sided doors, and nothing in the kind of like tripwire. It's kind of interesting. So the idea of traps in the white box is not a little like tripwire and then an axe comes flying down at you. It's like false stairs, slanting passages, trap steps, teleportation areas, sinking rooms, illusion, mind control, and gesh rooms. Jeez. Dead end sections so that if you're running from monsters, you get trapped. One-sided doors, and then natural passages that have uneven widths, and then finally space distortion corridors. Nothing about kind of more ordinary traps, which is super interesting. I wonder if they'll have something under. Maybe I need to go to treasure. Something, because we know we got like needle traps and things like that on, which I guess is really more where the thief trapping comes from. But I'll have to go down and let's keep. Let's see. Hold on a minute. All right, so here's another interesting one. I don't know why this is becoming a white box reading exercise, but this is sometimes the kind of research you have to do. I'm not sorry for it. Okay. So here we have an example of play. This is a referee moderating a dungeon exposition. I'm now on page 13. 13 of Underworld and Wilderness Adventures. Okay, let's see. Hold on, I just want to see where to read. All right, so the referee says the room contains the bodies of the gnolls. I guess they just killed the gnolls or they just found them. Anyway, body of some bodies, pile of refuse in the north corner of the west wall, and 2 trunks along the wall opposite the one which sounds hollow. Okay, so, and then the caller says the elf will check out the hollow sound. One of us will sort through the refuse. Each trunk will be opened by one of us, and the remaining 2, and they name exactly who it is, but this they don't cover it in the book. Says we'll guard each door, listening to get an advance warning if anything approaches. Smart plan, right? The referee says another check on the hollow sound reveals a secret door which opens onto a flight of stairs down to the south. The refuse is nothing but sticks, bones, offal, and old clothes. One chest is empty. The other had a poison needle on the lock. And then here we have a parenthetical here. Here, a check to see if the character opening it makes his saving throw for poison. Yeesh, that's rough. The chest with the poison needle is full of copper pieces. Appears to be about 2,000 of them. So obviously, they didn't die to the poison needle trap. And this is a nice other thing, right? We talk about like, well, DM versus players, right? But this is in the white book. Listen to this. So the caller then says, empty out all of the copper pieces and check the trunk for secret drawers or false bottoms. And do the same with the empty one. Also, do there seem to be any old boots or cloaks among the old clothes in the rubbish pile? And then the ref, in which they put a parenthetical cursing the thoroughness of the caller. The seemingly empty trunk has a false bottom. In it, you have found an onyx case with a jeweled necklace. So, why the ref is cursing the fact that that they didn't hide their treasure enough is kind of funny. I'm sure it's not meant to be taken seriously, but it's just funny. Okay, but nothing in here about nobody. I guess there were there's no thief yet, but nobody trying to disarm or remove any of these things. Okay, so that was it for that. So far, nothing. I'm just going to check treasure in case there's something about treasure chests, traps on treasure chests. I don't think there is. I think we're going to find ourselves free of that. Naval combat, naval movement, baronies. Let's see. Do they have specialist for engineer? What does the engineer do? Oh, that's for constructing strongholds and whatnots. Alchemists, armorers, assassins, animal trainers. None of these are particularly smiths. A spy. No actual numbers given as to what any of those, what a spy might add. We're in the wilderness. Oh, I think I need to go to a different book. I think. Okay. Yes. All right. That's nothing there. Men and Magic, I don't think had anything. Right. Let me see. Well, what does Greyhawk say in terms of? Oh, that's we're going to have all those percentages. I don't like the percentages. I don't like the percentages when nothing else is using them. Is my like if everybody were using the same percentages, then I'd feel better about having them. But I don't like when everyone's got kind of funky different things, and I sort of like X and 6. Okay, so hear noise. All right, so we were looking at open locks, remove traps. Uh, Starts at 10%, 15%. 15% for locks, 10% for traps. Which kind of would put it on. The numbers aren't clean. Numbers aren't clean, but you have that. I don't think there's going to be. I don't think so. So I think we're going to have to figure it out ourselves, how we want to do that, which I want to try to avoid. But, I've done my due diligence and I can't see anything for removing small traps. And I'm just going to put installing or removing small traps. I'm just going to give it an X and 6. So we'll just go 1 in 6 chance at first level, increasing by 1 every. So it'll be 1 in 6 at first level, say every 2 levels. Does that work? That would be at third level. 2 and 6. Fifth level, 3 and 6. Seventh level. Yeah, that works. 4 and 6. 4 and 6. Ninth, 5 and 6. That seems reasonable, I think. What do you think? And then that's remove small traps. I mean, we could use pickpocketing for that too, I suppose. Not sure. They use different ones. Actually, you know what? Let's do every 3 levels. So that would be 4th, 3 and 6. 7th will be 4 and 6. And then 10th will be 5 and 6. Like that. Because remember, we're trying to do this. So essentially, anybody could do it. But basically, thieves are +1. Non-thieves may attempt with a 1 in 6 chance. Okay, so that is installing, installing and removing small traps. And then maybe I would do for pickpocketing, do my, could be the same. Pilfering. I like pilfering. Filching and pilfering. Filching and picking pockets. Filtering and I usually kind of like to spread things around. Have things trigger on different levels. Oh, I didn't spell. Yeah. No, that's not it. It's filtering. But basically, there we go. So this could be our set of thieves skills. What we don't have is the magic part, but this is already pretty good. Stealthy, sharp hearing, equipment proficiencies, right? Installing and removing traps, filtering and picking pockets. Ciphering and deciphering. What do we call it? Scrolls and documents. One in 6 chance at first level. Let's see. Increasing by 1 every at each level. That would mean at level 6 they'd have a 6 out of 6 chance. I wonder if this is where you go with the Necronomicon rule. How would people feel about the Army of Darkness Necronomicon rule, where anybody can try to read a spell scroll, but they just have a very small chance of reading it correctly? AKA giving them a 1 in 6. Actually, I don't need all that. Let's see. Every, I say 2 levels. Klaatu, Vrata, Nikto, exactly. And I see there I misdid it. I would have summoned whatever. So that would be 3rd, 2 and 6, 5th, 3 and 6, 7th, 4 and 6, 9th, 5 and 6. Magic can decipher. Let's see. Can decipher magic. Let's see. Can decipher but magical languages with a -2 penalty. Okay, so here's what I've done with this. Did I make that bold? I didn't. All right, let me just pull over here. Let me zoom in. So here's what I've got. So this is kind of the whole boat, right? And it probably will have to be another streamer. I'll do it on the side where I'll kind of split these up. Basically, we have stealthy, right? They're +1 to surprise attempts, -1 to be surprised. Maybe I'll put a note in here. And always surprise, regardless of, I don't know, circumstances. Something like that. I might change that up. But basically that, just giving them a like, hey, they can do it, and maybe in a spot where you can't. They've got something to them. Okay, they've got great hearing, so they get +1 in listening for noise. Great. They're proficient with lock picks, which lets them pick locks. Or we can even go with, if you want to do thieves tools, that would also help with the installing and removing traps. Could be if you want to make that also an equipment thing. If you got thieves tools, they can monkey with it. That might also be something, because you imagine hard to really remove a trap cleanly with just a dagger or a knife. You probably need something a little bit finer. So that could also be another option, is to make that an equipment proficiency, which might actually help with that. They have their ambush or silent strike. If they've surprised a target, they get that accuracy and extra damage. This could also be something that anybody can do. Maybe, right? We could. This is one of the ones, silent strike, which maybe we could do. I don't really like to give everybody this, just because I tend to veer into kind of the heroes as heroes, so they're not doing stuff like knifing people in the back. That's kind of a villainous, bad guy kind of tactic. But whatever, that's going to be very game table dependent. So if you want, you could maybe open that up to everybody, but maybe just give the thieves a bonus. Again, you could add that as a bonus to that. They can install or remove small traps. Maybe that's again for everybody, but the tool helps. But anyway, we give them some progression in there, because I like progression. I want people to feel good when leveling up. So that starts off as 2 and 6, and then increases by 1 every 3 levels. So 2 and 6. Then at 4th, it's 3 and 6. At 7th, it's 4 and 6. At 10th, it's 5 and 6. I always want there to be a chance of failure. And then, non-thieves can attempt with a 1 in 6 chance. Filtering and pickpockets, basically the same. And then ciphering and deciphering scrolls, a little bit different. It's only 1 in 6 at first level, but it increases so that by 9th level, it's at 5 and 6. And you can try to decipher a magical language with a -2 penalty. Now, what this means is that, so here's this one. It's a little bit of a give back, right? I'm doing a little give and take. On the one hand, you're going to be able to, as a thief, by 5th level, which I think is earlier than you can. Let me see. When is the earliest level you can decipher magic in? Hold on. My idea was that I'm giving it to them earlier, but it's not as secure. But let me actually read that. So, let's see here. What do we have? We've got, okay, yeah, 10th level and above are able to understand magical writings. And then they say 7th level and above, there's a 10% chance that they'll reverse the effect. So what I'm doing is I'm giving it to you earlier. Basically, 5 levels earlier, you'll be able to read magic scrolls, but that's only with a 1 in 6 chance of success. And the best you're going to get to is 50% chance of success at 9th level, as opposed to only powerful spells. So you could potentially mess up having a lot of your Army of Darkness, Necronomicon moments happening, which I think is fair. You're going to get to do it earlier if you want to. It's riskier. You get it earlier, but it's riskier. And if you get all the way to 10th level, yeah, it's not as good as the old school thief in terms of just being able to do lower than 7th level spells with impunity. Hey, you know what? It is what it is. But you'll get you get to do it further on. Hopefully you don't kill yourself with the reverse of one of these spells or some other magical mishap by reading them early. But there you go. Hey, Frederick. Frederick says, why even have a thief class? Thief class, really? What do they do? Excuse me, that's so special. I mean, the answer is they don't do anything that's so special. I do think there is so, like I said at the beginning of this, I have my kind of nuclear option of blowing it up, taking all the thief stuff, turning them into packages, and then spreading them around. And then my even more nuclear option was to take all the demi-human abilities and all the thief abilities, package them up, and spread them around. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I do think there is an archetype in fiction, in the kinds of stories that D&D was trying to kind of emulate or create, a framework to play in, with someone who's like the skill monkey type, someone who's got a lot of little tricks. And there isn't a class that really highlight or that delivers on that. I do think there's an archetype there. People are, you're always able to pull out something. Go, what about this guy that wasn't the great fighter and wasn't the great magic user, but they kind of had something up their sleeves and this or that. They don't have anything for it. I mean, really, the reason why they don't have anything for it is because there's no skill system. So there's no way of quantifying in the white box if it's outside of the kind of very defined, narrow skills they have, like attacking something, avoiding something, aka saving throws, and then turning undead, and you can add casting spells to that. There's nothing to indicate somebody who's a MacGyver type, where it's like, yeah, MacGyver was never the guy that was going to just beat you up. I mean, granted, they get into fist fights and stuff, but that was never his jam. Unless you want to say that MacGyverism itself was kind of magical, you could probably make that argument. Other than that, it's like he's doing all these other little things. He's removing and installing small traps. He's doing all these things. He's pulling out knowledge out of his butt. Well, like, how do you get that guy in this kind of, or that person? How do you get that kind of person in the game? There's not a great way to do it in the white box, especially if you don't want to then attach a whole set of skills. But it is interesting to go through and look at the skills that they clearly prioritized, or not prioritized, but that they were trying to emphasize, right? So we went through the list. We can go back here, right? We saw that, okay, opening locks, listening for noise, using spell scrolls, understanding magical writings, moving with stealth, hiding in shadows, striking silently from behind, climbing nearly sheer surfaces, removing traps, filching and pickpocketing, and then deciphering stuff. And what's interesting is this is not a new phenomenon, right? Obviously, that Greyhawk, we'll see my version of Greyhawk. What's the publication date? So my version of Greyhawk is a 6th printing from, so it's copyrighted in 1976, and my printing's from 1977. So very quickly into the run of D&D, people were making thief classes. And again, I could go look at some of the blogs and find out when the original thief prototype came out. But there was obviously a need there, or if not a need, a desire to kind of emulate a different sort of person. Much the same way that, rangers and paladins, people want to play different. You want to play something different, and you're trying to figure out, well, how do we give this person something? Now, I totally get, and part of what this whole exercise was designed to do, my whole concept behind it, was to look at, can we redo the thief in a way that doesn't step on as many toes, that isn't taking away from what everybody wants to do? Because you go from 1973, 1974 to everybody is doing these things, to suddenly 1976, okay, thieves are better at listening at this. Thieves can open locks. Thieves can do these things. Now, slightly differently, like I'm pretty sure that probably the guy playing the fighter in the game in 1974 wasn't trying to do a clever lock picking of a lock. They're just smashing it off. So it gives you another option, the kind of the stealth option. But certainly listening at doors, well, why do thieves suddenly get to listen at doors? Or why did, all the misunderstandings around hiding and sneaking, like, why did the thief only get to do that? Why don't I get to do that? And then they didn't do a good job explaining it, so you have to look in different places and try to piece together what they meant. The literal hide in shadows means you can hide behind a column, but the thief can hide in the shadow cast by the column, kind of thing. But fluky. So I was trying to figure out can we have the thief and still keep that idea of everybody can do stuff? And so that's how I tried to break it out. So we went through and really in the first stream, kind of tried to break out these different things into, what's basically equipment, where are the overlaps, what are something that thieves are just better at, and then what are kind of unique things. And then we just started picking them out, right? If we basically take stealth and surprise and use the existing surprise mechanic for basically your stealthy behavior, then we can just now turn the thieves move in hiding into just they're better at surprising or not being surprising than other people. And the same thing for listening for noise. If we just use what was existing and listening for noise, give the thieves a little added just a bump in it, we can then continue to stick with the fact that no, everybody can do it. Thieves are just a little bit better at it. So now and then we kind of boil that down. We have these additional skills, which I'm not exactly sure what to do yet, because we're already at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different things. Now, what I did with some of these ones that were new was I basically created X and 6 systems and then gave the thieves a bonus on top of it. There, and maybe we could do the same. I would probably be that appraisal could probably be another one where they're just better at it than everybody. So what we end up doing is creating, I guess what we've kind of done in a way is created a more or less universal X and 6 system, and then just started giving the thief bonuses on top, which is probably what a lot of people have done anyway, with it. But then I also thought maybe they'll have to just wait for another one, since I'm already at the hour of splitting it up into maybe some specific archetypes and kind of saying, instead of having one thief with like 8 different things, break it out. Ninjas and burglars are both stealthy, but maybe ninjas have got the silent strike and the equipment proficiency and the climbing kit, those claws. Burglars don't. They have something else. The spy has the filching and picking pockets, and maybe the sharp hearing. Everyone has, right? We can kind of figure out and sort of divvy them up. And this is also a way of looking at it and saying maybe this version of the thief is really like a broad archetype that then we can create classes using that and saying, okay, here are all the thiefly things. Here's everything. And then we can kind of create some things. And then the other thing would be obviously that in your own game, in your table, in your world, you can then customize it to come up with the thief, whatever it is, whether it's a burglar. And by burglar, I'm kind of going with the Hobbit archetype of Bilbo as a burglar kind of thing, or whether you're looking to do something, whatever a spy means to you. Is it James Bond? Is it, I forget, like a John le Carré kind of spy? Is it something else? Whatever ninjas kind of mean to you, you can pop it over there. Jackal says kind of a Tomb Raider / fixer type. Yeah, but a kind of Jackal, but I guess that's kind of where the problem comes in, right? Because people will say, and rightfully so, aren't we all Tomb Raiders? Aren't we all kind of fixers? And the answer is, yeah, you're just going about it in different ways. So if you think about in terms of the archetypes, a fighter goes about it by beating up and destroying anything in its path. A cleric is basically your mix of, I might magic it a bit, I might beat it up a bit, basically. And then your magic users, I'm going to do it by spells. So then where would the thief sit? The thief would sit in that maybe that third pole of, I'm going to do it by being good at a lot of other things. I'm not great at beating things up. I'm not great at casting spells, but I can do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I can pick the lock. I can be sneaky. I can do these I got all these little side skills that I can use because I'm not a great beater up person and I'm not a great magic-y person. And I'm not even that much of a combination. I'm on a different pole. Like I'm in that, like if you think of like fighters being on the pole of martial, or if we were going to make a triangle, can I actually, hold on, can I just make that? Maybe I can, let me see. Oh yes, create a drawing. All right. Okay, so if I was going to make a triangle, we've got, pardon my horrible fighters here, magic here, thief here, and the cleric would probably sit something like here. So you've got, fighting over here, magic over here, and skills over here. Maybe even the cleric might sit a little bit more, because like I said, I think of Turn Undead as essentially their skill increases with level. Not something, it's positioned as sort of a magic kind of thing, but it's something that increases as they go up. So I look at it kind of like a skill, and they literally in the Turn Undead table is basically skill versus the level of challenge. With the easier things, you get past them, and then you get to, as you level up, you get to take on higher challenges. So it really is it is set up like a skill. So that's kind of how I'd have this triangle. And I do think that there is something here. I do think that having someone that's good at these little things, not all about force, not all about magic. They're about that up here. So that's kind of my thinking of it. What does that do? Oh, markers. Is that a fill? I've never. Oh, that's just the color of your ink. Okay. So there you go. That's what we got. So I will kind of write this up, and maybe we'll do a third one where we can kind of come back to these archetypes and maybe work on the packages. Packages. Yum yum yum. Packages version where we talk about can we package these up and just give them out to anybody who wants them. First come, first serve. You get a package, and you get a package, and you get a package. We'll see. But I thought we did good work. I mean, we had some twists and turns and some sidebars and digressions. But I kind of like where we're at. And the thing is here with this is, remember, this seems like a lot, but we're also giving everybody, specifically, we're going to give X and 6s for all these down here. So not only are the thieves getting these, but everyone else is going to be getting them too in some way. Jekyll says getting close to second edition kits. Yeah, I guess so. And I looked at, and there was a video I did, or did I do it? Was it a video or a stream a while back where I looked at some of the kits? Or I think adding spice to fighters, was it that I looked at some of the fighter kits? But yeah, totally. I could see that, right? I could totally see doing that. And the other thing is we want to be mindful, at least I want to be mindful of, is I don't want to have too many things where you start to build synergies, because that's where I feel like you start down that road to the kind of third edition where you're doing a build, where you're finding the synergy. Ooh, I'm an elf, so I get this synergy. And then if this elf is a thief, then he gets this synergy. So then I can kind of get, like, I want to try to avoid all that, which is why part of why my idea of packaging everything together or splitting everything up into packages is that you don't get in a situation where you get the elf that's got +1 to hearing, and then you get the thief that gets +1 to hearing, and then, or stealth. And so they end up going like, and then you end up creating it where it's a situation where everyone's going, well, if you're going to play a thief, you have to be an elf. Like, I don't want that. That's part of what I like about the simplicity of these games, is that it doesn't, like, there is none of that, right? I mean, obviously in something like BX, you can't, because an elf is an elf and can't be anything else. But even in the, the white box or what, there's very limited like synergies, and the ones that they have are the ones that they really want. Like, they want your halfling, to, especially after Greyhawk, right? They want your halfling to be kind of go down that thief kind of path. If you're something else, whatever. So I kind of want to be mindful of that, because I don't want to end up in like the build. I'm trying to avoid. So I want to add some stuff, but not in a way that's going to create build culture. I don't know if that's a thing. Jackal says, if everyone's a Tomb Raider, then each member of the group could pick a Raider kit. Yeah, you could. Or I would actually, I think my preference, Jackal, was that people would pick different ones, which is why I thought there might be, I would put a sidebar of maybe saying, hey, how about have everybody pick something different? And that way you can't really min-max, but you can also, it then forces you to be diverse, but then you also get to benefit from that diversity. But yes, if you wanted to have 4 Tomb Raiders, you could totally give everybody some kind of Tomb Raider kit. But it might be nice to give somebody, I mean, think of like the A-team, right? Let's take the A-team as kind of an example. Everybody had different things. There wasn't, I that's kind of what I want to have, is, right, someone is the muscle that does, I don't know what, heavy weapons, which is, BA. Somebody is the kind of the disguises, and, well, I mean, they all kind of did disguises, but really I think a face is being kind of that out there schmoozing, doing your social things. You have the planner in Hannibal. You've got the crazy vehicle pilot in Murdoch. Right, everyone kind of had a lane they could kind of sit in, and even though you might say all the A-team are fighters, this is where I think, like, all the A-team are fighters. Each one has their own little separate package. So together, there's 4 fighters, but different packages, so they get that little bit. Jackal, you can do it randomly, absolutely. Random could be it, or just let them pick it, but just say, hey, only one. Each one's got to pick a different package, something like that, right? I wouldn't say you must do it this way, but this is probably the way I would run it. Say everyone can have one. Pick something different. Let's create an A-team, and let's not just create a team of all BAs, or, God forbid, all Murdochs. Or maybe actually that might be kind of fun. Nah, it's probably too much Murdoch. And yes, I'm probably dating myself immensely with Murdoch A-team references. You could probably pick Firefly. That one's not that new. I don't know. What would be the newest? Would be a newer I mean, I guess not. If we weren't going superheroes, if we were going to pick kind of team adventure types, but putting aside superheroes, so no like Avengers or something like that, what would be the example? What do we have in popular culture now? So I can go back and think like A-Team, or Firefly more recently. But Transformers would be one. I mean, I hate the Michael Bay Transformer movies, but I guess they kind of have the same thing. They're all Transformers, but they all have different abilities. I don't know. Is it just not a thing much anymore? I'm trying to think. I mean, even I guess the A-Team was kind of its own thing too, or Miami Vice. Everybody had their specialty. My uncle was always partial to Switek, the man in the van. He was my uncle's favorite character. Well, I don't want to bore you with that. I hope everyone had a cool, fun Halloween on my other little visited channel. I mean, I kind of forget about it too, so don't feel bad. And I did link to it in the community notes here, just if you want to see it. I did take some poor quality video of going out last night into the neighborhood to do some trick-or-treating with my daughter. Always a lot of fun. So I hope everyone had a fun Halloween. It's nice to do it when kind of neighborhoods and people get into it. In our neighborhood, I mean, just by virtue of how Brooklyn is, it's, I think, better than Manhattan. Manhattan, it's usually about, I mean, they're a brownstone neighborhood, so I guess it's got some of it, but I always felt like as a kid when I was in Manhattan, it was all like in the building. This is kind of really nice because everyone sort of comes out. I guess it feels more like what I imagined if I'd ever gone trick-or-treating or Halloween in kind of a smaller town would be like, but really follow my daughter and she runs into all her different friends because all her friends go to the same school pretty much and all live in the neighborhood. So it's kind of fun like that. Jekyll says the loss of program TV got rid of that. Yeah, and I just think the tastes have also kind of changed maybe a bit. But I could probably find some other examples if I thought about it. But something for another day. All right, folks, I'm going to close up shop. I'm pretty sure, I think it's 99% nailed down that I'm going to be going to Claricon with Daniel this weekend. That means no stream on Friday because I will be on the road for with Daniel for like 10 hours or something. I don't know however long hours is from New York to somewhere in rural Canada, I think outside Ontario. So if you don't hear from either of us, call the A-Team because we've been lost in Canada. I got to talk to Daniel. I'll see him tomorrow. See about maybe we could do some vlog kind of things. And I mean, we're going to have a lot of time in the car, so I have a lot of time to talk about stuff. We'll see how that goes. First time for me. Well, first time for him also at Claricon. We'll see. Should be happening unless something unforeseen comes up. Should be happening. I'll give you more info as I get it. Other than that, everybody, have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on, and I will talk to you later. Bye now.